Down payments explained. So in this video, I'll probably go over a little bit into down payments, and in my own words, I'll explain what they are, how much you need for a down payment, and maybe even talk about down payment assistance. So what is a down payment? A down payment is when the bank says, hey, I will finance this home for you, but I still want you to have some skin in the game. So I'll finance most of it, but you bring the rest of the cash for the deal. So for example, the bank might say, hey, I'll finance 95% of the deal. So if you want to buy a $100,000 house, I finance 95%, which is 95,000, and you bring in 5%, right? That 5% is going to be your skin in the game, and that will also be your down payment. So that 5% in this scenario equals out to $5,000, right? So I bring in 95 as a bank, you bring in the $5,000 as your down payment. So that's what a down payment is, just a little bit of skin in the game for you, and then the lender finances the rest. So let's go over the down payment options for a primary home. So primary just means that you'll be living in the actual home. So on a conventional loan, you only need between 3 to 5% minimum down payment, and that is 3% if you're a first-time home buyer, and 5% if you're second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time buying a home, but you'll be living in the home. On an FHA loan, FHA has a minimum down payment of 3.5%, and that allows you to get into the home with a low down payment, whether you're a first-time or second-time home buyer. Now, with FHA, you can get that low down payment as long as your credit score is above a 580 or above. If you have a 579 or below, then you actually need 10% down to buy a home. On a VA loan, VA loans don't actually have a minimum down payment, so you can buy a home with as little as 0% down on a VA loan. You can always do more than the minimum. So if you're looking to buy a home on an investment loan, such as a long-term rental or maybe even a short-term rental, you can need a minimum of 20 to 25% down payment. Next, let's go over down payment assistance options. So for down payment assistance, these are great ways for people to get into a home, and there's a few different routes. It's either going to be a grant, which means you'll get that money, and as soon as you get it, you can use that money for your down payment or closing cost, and that money will be forgiven as soon as you have it, so it's essentially free money. There's also down payment assistance as second loans, so you'll either pay it back monthly or when you refinance or sell the house. So it's a second loan on the house. And typically sometimes there's like a forgivable loan sometimes, which just means it's forgiven after a certain amount of years. I would definitely check in with your loan officer that you like to work with, because these things change all the time, and what's available now might not be available in the future. They always kind of switch around. So I would definitely check out when you guys are looking to buy a home. Now, the last thing I'll say about down payments is things can definitely change from person to person. So imagine this scenario. You actually go out looking for houses before you're pre-approved. You find the perfect house, and then you find out that maybe your debt to income ratio is a little tight. Your credit is not as great as you thought it was. So the bank might ask you to bring a higher down payment than the minimum down payment required, right? So maybe let's say you're looking at a conventional loan and the minimum down payment for a first-time home buyer is only 3%. If your credit isn't ideal or your debt to income ratio is kind of high, the bank might ask you to bring, whatever 10% down for the deal, for them to feel comfortable lending you that money for that property. So this is where things can change from person to person. Sometimes you hear things like, oh, you can't buy a home with less than 10 or 20% down. That's not necessarily the case, even if it happened to one person, right? Mortgages can definitely be tailored for that specific person. And if you have a great credit score, maybe you have a low debt to income ratio, you can get away with bringing the minimum down payment and still be fine, right? So these things can definitely change from person to person. I would definitely reach out to your loan officer whenever you're ready to buy. That way you can get it tailored to your situation. And let me know if this was helpful for you guys, and if there's any other questions I can answer for you.